I caught half of that.
What happened to the other half?
My brain stopped working.
Welcome, fellas, back to the world of survival horror. You may have survived the game, but can you survive talking about the game?
It's me, I'm Dolan Malna, here with my boys Austin.
Hello there.
And Christian.
Hello.
Okay, it's been a hot minute, but we are back in town to talk about Resident Evil. We have finished the game, and I am very excited to talk about that today. So without further ado, I wanted to go over our first topic, actually, which was, we talked about the history of fixed camera, tank controls style thing, and that style of game and how it's fallen out of fashion. So the question I want to ask the audience, first off, is, audience, please comment below. Do you think that style of gameplay that you've been seeing play in the background should return, or should it stay a relic of the past? Does it have a place in modern gaming? Yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys think, so let me know if you think yes and no, and why. But before we get to their answers, I also want to hear you. Christian, do you think it should come back, or should it stay a relic of the past?
Yes to and no.
That's not one of the answers. Okay, what you thinking, Lincoln?
So I think it's an interesting mechanic that, like you said, is not used in like really anything today, at least from what I've seen. So I think I picture it as like a portion of the game being fixed camera. Could maybe work. I don't know if a full game fixed camera would work in today's world. Maybe it would. It would really just depend on the game and the subject matter. Yeah,
that's absolutely fair. Austin, you kind of hinted a little bit at this, but what you thinking about this one?
I do think that it should still remain a used tool, especially in where it could possibly shine the most in today's market is a lot of like potential indie studios that might want to try to get into the market could easily utilize this system and make a very good game with limited assets.
You're onto something, I think. This one actually ironically isn't exactly fixed camera, but Crow Country has utilized very similar controls and kind of art style. And its big shtick is that it makes all of the assets look as if they're pre-rendered even when you can turn the camera 3D, which is an interesting kind of idea to it. But I think you're right that the indie scene hasn't really fully tapped into the potential of this, and that's a great place. Like, I don't know if Resident Evil 9 is going to go back to fixed camera angle. I think Christian's right that it would be very ballsy and pay off if you had a spooky section, you entered one area, and suddenly the camera just pans to a fixed angle for a section, and like that would be bonkers. But yeah, full game, I think even if the big guys are a little too scared to do that for an entire game, the indies should take inspiration from that and use that. I think you're right on the money, Austin. But yeah, I genuinely want to hear what the guys down below think. Like I said, there's some people that have kind of taken inspiration. Silent Hill, Signalis, Crow Country kind of sort of use the system, but never fully. I'm really curious if there's any other games I'm missing down below, if people can let us know so we can look at those, if people think that, this should stay dead, or if it should return from the dead once more. But, getting that out of the way, we should actually dive into the game itself, I think. Fellas, it's been a long ride. For some of us, it's been longer than others, and we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I kind of wanted to go over. We did the first half of the game, and now we're hitting that second half of the game right here, which is, just to go over it real quick, the guardhouse, return to the mansion, catacombs, final lab. Those are the sections we went through. Yeah. What do we think about the impressions of kind of the second half of the game versus the first half of the game? Austin, I'd love to hear your kind of grand overview of the second half of the game.
Grand overview. It was still pretty enjoyable compared to the first half. I don't think one half was necessarily weaker than the other one. It felt pretty good altogether. I think it was the first time that I got lost thanks to being a pixel too far turned to the left. So that was entertaining. But that was the
I'm
only
gonna put
time
that
I
up on the screen.
experienced some mild frustration. One other time I'll get to when we get closer to end point of the game. But overview, it's still pretty good quality.
That's great. Yeah, I'll be sure to have that on screen, that moment, because I was so sad when you when you showed me. I was like, oh, you had exactly the right idea. It was just something about the camera angle didn't pay off, and that was heartbreaking to see. But yeah, these games are pretty. Yeah, Christian, you obviously had some opinions about the first half of the game. Was the second half able to win you over a little bit, or was it like, this is nice, but, what do you think?
I did like the second half better. I don't know if it's just because I had more of a handle on the controls, or part of it I also enjoyed was the changing of the setting, not just being in the mansion the whole time. I liked kind of the variety of the guardhouse, the lab, catacombs, all those areas. Snakes falling out of the sky for no reason.
I think there were trees, I think is the implication, but yeah.
Now, see, they were on a plane, but then they got kicked off, and then they fell from the sky.
Oh, they were tired of those melon-farming snakes on that Monday to Friday plane.
Oh my word. But yeah, I liked the second half more. And I also felt like there were more cutscenes throughout the second half of the game, as opposed to first half. Just kind of felt like it was the initial cinematic cutscene and then just pixelated cutscenes. But there was more like
story, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, more story, and going from the pixelated to that feeling of the movie from the 80s kind of a vibe in the cutscenes. So I enjoyed that.
Enrico. But yeah. I think some important things to note about the second half, just kind of compared to the first, especially for our viewers who haven't played Resident Evil 1 before, is it's notably more linear. The first that first mansion visit really gives you a lot of options to kind of tackle puzzles at your own pace and in your own way, which has pros and cons, because as was mentioned, you can feel a little bit lost, but it also leaves you feeling like there's always, even if you don't exactly know where to go, you usually feel like you have a couple different places to go. Whereas the second half is very much like, there's a way, and I got to figure out what that way is. Thankfully, and we'll get into some details, I don't think it's ever too obtuse that we may have some disagreements on that, but it feels like you're able to be guided pretty decently through it. But yeah, it's definitely more linear in that second half. Another thing I noted, which again we may have some disagreement and I'd love to hear, is I felt like the overall resource management, because it was more linear, does take a huge backseat. For myself, I found myself with an excess of ammo and healing items, just like a glut. It became less about like managing my overall inventory and more about how many healing items or how much ammo do I want to take on this individual trip, because there's only one way to go. I know I'm going to go that way and I have to get through it. So it was less like, oh, I need to go find healing to feel like I'm safe enough to go explore this wing. It's more like, I have to head this way. Do I take a healing herb with me, or hope I'll pick one up on the way? Christian, now I understand, I think you had a different experience kind of with the getting lost and the resource management part of this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us about that.
So I clearly did not do a very good job of resource management, particularly in the first half, and then especially when the hunters came into play. I used a majority of the healing items from the mansion and the guardhouse with the hunters, and then I ended up not realizing that I did not have any healing items in my chest. So I went and I saved the game, and I saved over my previous file.
Oh, that's your first mistake.
Yeah, I learned from that mistake, but when I saved, I also did not realize that I was one hit from death. and I had not taken out hardly any of the hunters, like maybe one.
Oh man.
So I put myself in a corner and had to find a way out. So
But you struggled through.
I did. I had to learn how to properly juke out the hunters, but I finally figured that part out.
And you talked to us. Oh, go on. Sorry.
And I used a lot of shotgun ammo.
Oh yeah.
You had a shotgun.
But yeah, I think a big part of it also was there was more healing. You just didn't. Austin and I have played some version of this game several times before, and we know where some of the stuff. But like, I think we had a conversation, and you got stuck at one part, and I was like, "Hey, if you go this other way, I'm pretty sure there's some heals there," and that gave you a leg up in the fight, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Still
Yeah.
a learning curve on my end.
No. But all I was pointing out was that the game, it provided enough stuff, but if you don't know where it is, it doesn't feel like an option. You know, especially since we were in that more linear part. Sure, that was at the mansion where you had a couple other rooms you could go check if you missed them the first time. But if you don't know where all the heals and nooks and crannies and have the place memorized, like some of us do, it kind of feels like, well, time to bang my head against this, and I could see that being a frustrating experience. Yeah, but any other notes about kind of like the resource management in that second half, or you feel like the hunters kind of summed it up for you right there?
The hunters definitely gave me the most trouble, but in terms of resource management, it is a balance of thinking through which of these quest items or like clue items do I need to hold on to. Is this for a puzzle down the road, or do I feel like I can put in the chest and take some extra ammo or an extra healing item and keep going forward? So that was another thing that you kind of had to wager which way you felt like the game was going, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, no, definitely. Austin, though, I'm curious where you were on that spectrum of feeling like you had a lot of leftover, or did resources ever get tight for you in that second half?
No, honestly, I had way too much of everything. I was drowning in healing, I was drowning in ammo. I just got to the point where I was, not for the sake of saving ammo, but due to me wanting to hurry through, I just mostly stopped killing the hunters and just juked them all to get through them. It's like, I don't got time for you, get out of my way, see ya suckers, and then just got out of there.
What a show off. We gotta admit though, so we should explain also, I didn't put this in the notes, sorry, but yeah, hunters. So the first half of the game's pretty much entirely zombies, couple random animals, but when you return to the mansion, a lot of the enemies are replaced by these very aggressive kind of reptile men called hunters, and those things will knock you out. I died 3 times, and one of them was to a dog, which I mentioned last time. The other 2 were to hunters, where 2 would get there and just stun lock me in the corner and kill me. I was not as good at juking as Austin was, but yeah, they're very aggressive, and I personally don't think the Resident Evil games are intensely difficult, Dark Souls-esque games, but I will say the Resident Evil 1 hunters are among some of the most difficult enemies in the series, in my opinion. Even if Austin was able to glide by without any problems, they certainly gave me a run for my money, I'll tell you that.
Well, I will have to say the first one did instantly kill me. But after that, I locked in and they were no more threat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, looking at that, it does seem like there's kind of that difference in focus, and it's interesting to see kind of different play styles and how those paid off. It stayed an interesting challenge with the heals for you, Christian, whereas for Austin and I, it kind of became a, like, how long do I want to take to get stuff? Like, I mentioned, I ran from the second snake fight, Yawn, all the way to getting the battery just in one go because I didn't want to bother going back and getting stuff or healing. And I just didn't bring anything with me but like one gun, and I just ran through the whole thing because I knew I only had enough space to get that once. Might have been why the hunters kept killing me. I didn't bring any healing items, but yeah. But on that note, kind of looking as we've kind of looked at this overview here, I guess I'd love to hear from you guys. do you have a preference for that more Metroidvania kind of multiple options maze-like gameplay of the first half, or the more kind of action-focused, a bit more linear thing of the second half? I've already kind of said I tend to like the Metroidvania style, but I'm really curious, Austin. Do you have a preference on that one?
So I think it is very valuable for the Resident Evil games in general to have both, but I do enjoy probably the more Metroidvania aspect more than the linear side, because that's, I don't know, it just kind of feels like the staple of what the game is, and then you just
it feels more Resident Evil at that point.
Yeah, like it feels great, especially when it's the beginning of the game, because you kind of start establishing the whole place, the setting, you start building your comfort level, and then it kind of uses that momentum through the linear section.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a really good thought, that like it part of why you like that first is that it sets up the second. Is what I'm hearing from you. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, you wouldn't want a whole game that like never had any action linear set pieces, is what I'm hearing.
I think I would probably still enjoy a game, but I do think when you add that little linear, even if it's like a short linear section, just to kind of for the climax of whatever plot or action thing or whatever's going on, elevates the game a lot.
Nice. That's a cool thought. And Christian, I think I know already what you're going to say, but yeah, do you have a strong preference for the more linear side than the Metroidvania on this one?
Now that I have played the entire game through, I have much more appreciation for both sides. I felt more... I felt more comfortable with the more linear side just because this was my first time playing a classic Resident Evil game. Or first time playing a lot of things that this game is, fixed camera, tank controls, all of that. So that, along with trying to figure out exactly how the puzzles worked, kind of threw me in the first half. But the second half, being much more linear, I felt like it helped me kind of get a better understanding of how this game kind of works. So I feel excited for the second one and eager to hopefully not have as hard of a time. Now that I kind of have a little bit of experience in exactly how these games work.
So I've got a hypothetical for you real quick based on that. Say the game had been a little bit inverted, not necessarily in setting, but in like layup, where if it had started out more linear and then kind of opened up at the end, do you think you might have felt like you could come to grips with it a little bit quicker than you did with the version that actually exists?
From my perspective, I would probably say so. I feel like the linear, it was a lot easier to kind of understand. Okay, now that I got this, it's most likely going to be used in this room, or I got to go here or there, as opposed to just, well, I don't know where to go, and I don't know how to control the game. So I don't know if any of the, and maybe you guys can answer this, are any of the other Resident Evil games kind of inverse to that, where it kind of opens up at the end, or is do they kind of stay to this format?
No. They do get progressively more linear in general.
Okay.
Like as the series goes on. I mean, with some exceptions, but at least in the 3 we're looking at, they're going to get progressively more linear overall. But I don't think there's any that start out linear and get more free as they go along. I think there's a pretty consistent trend of like the opening being the most open part, and then the second half tending to be a little bit more focused, linear and action-packed.
Okay.
So, sorry. And the opening of 2, I think, is the hardest out of all of the classic, like, things. It's just they throw you into the deep end on that one, so... But it would be interesting to see what a game that started out a bit more linear and opened up as it went along looked like. I kind of wish that existed now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Now, you mentioned the puzzles. That actually does lead me to another question I had, and I'll start with you, Christian, since you mentioned it. Now that you've gone through, we had some up and down and some of the open sections, some more linear sections, but how do you feel about the level of difficulty of the puzzles? Do you think they're too easy, too hard? Some of them were BS, overall good? Just walk me through your experience with the puzzles of Resident Evil 1.
I have a good appreciation for the puzzles. While some of them I felt like were pretty easy and didn't really even have to take a second to think about, others required me to kind of take a second glance at and not just go with some assumptions that I had about them. So the puzzles, I wouldn't say they're too easy or too hard. I would say that they're just right.
Just right, Goldilocks, baby.
Goldilocks puzzles.
So out of all the issues and things that didn't click with you about this game, the puzzles weren't really one of the aspects that were leading to that frustration?
Yeah, I mean the only puzzles at like the end of the game that really kind of caused me issues was there was the one where you had to figure out the password. That one took me a minute because I didn't realize that if you checked the painting before flipping the second switch, you could see just the symbols and not the words. So I just thought those were like clues to get you thinking. And
fair enough.
And I learned, and maybe I'm jumping ahead and talking about this too early.
No,
but
yeah, go for it.
You guys were giving me the wrong hints too.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was the funniest thing. I was losing my mind because you said, and I promise I want to hear your answer, Austin, but this cracked me up. Yeah, Austin, will you want to tell him what we were telling him? Do you remember that, or do you want me to tell the story?
Shoot, you probably have much better memory than I do. I think we were confusing in general just the remake answers.
No, that's not actually true. So I do remember this. So when he said, I need the login and password, or you said something like that. And so we thought you meant there's basically two passwords needed, or three. There's three things you have to type in: a login, a password, and then a second password. And he was like, I need to get into the computer, or you said something like that. I'm sure I'm wording it wrong. And so we thought, oh, you need that first login and password. And I was losing because I know you, Christian. You're not a dumb fellow. Like, we all make silly mistakes, but you're not stupid. No, you're bright. You're very bright. But I was like, are you having an aneurysm? Because you read the thing that tells you about the computer, and it goes like, the login is John, and the password to log in is Ada. And then after you read that, your character sits there and thinks to themselves, the login is John, and the password is Ada. And I thought that was the login and password that you couldn't figure out. And I was like, what happened? How is he not getting this? Like, there's not even a puzzle. And I knew you read the paper because you referenced the paper. And so I didn't realize you were trying to get that second password that actually is hidden behind a real puzzle. And so I was like trying not to like talk down to you like you were an infant, which if I had just asked directly, I would have gotten the answer that you were talking about something else. But I was like, is he like distracted? Is he not reading? What? Because we were trying to give you the Ada and John hint, like without being insulting. So it was a pretty funny mix-up for us when we finally realized that you were trying to get that second password that was actually hidden behind a puzzle.
Yeah.
So
because you guys were like, you've already said the answer, and I'm like, I looked back at the messages and I was like, I've already tried most of these words. Like, yeah. I was running around. I was just like taking any words I found. I used that random Excite poster. I tried using Excite for the password.
Oh, the Excite 98. Yeah.
That wasn't it.
Oh man.
I never said the word
because we were trying not to. I know. We completely misunderstood. So that was our bad. But we were not. We're trying not to just tell you everything. Yeah. Like that wouldn't be fun. We were trying to like give hints in the right direction, but we were completely off base. So that's our fault. Sorry about that.
No problem.
But it was good. It was pretty funny. Yeah. So okay, that was a little bit of a side tangent, but I think well worth it. Austin, coming back to the original question. I want to know what you think about the puzzles. Too hard? Too easy? I mean, it's a little bit of a moot point because you've played the remake, which has a lot of similarities, but still, I think you can separate the two experiences. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, so, I would say that the puzzles that I would say are on the more difficult side are practically the same level of difficulty between the remake. Because it's just like, in terms of the password, the method of finding it out is nearly the same. It's just a different word.
Yeah.
And then another puzzle that had to put a little bit more thinking in was crafting the formula, which I'm forgetting
formula.
Whatever that formula was called, G-Vault or whatever.
V-Jolt, so
V-Jolt.
very close.
V-Jolt. And of all the Resident Evil games I have played, I still think that the Resident Evil 1 puzzles were had the most complex ones of all the games. Now, I don't know about Classic 2 and Classic 3 that I haven't played yet, but of all the other ones, they were just simpler in design than what 1 has dished out so far. But on the topic of puzzles, and it's not too much of a puzzle, there was one that irked me a lot.
Was it the pool
lab.
table?
No. In the lab, there was you have to get into the morgue, and before the morgue, there are these 2 poison vents, and then the stairs you have to push. What I didn't understand was that the boxes, even if they're fully covering the vent, have to perfectly match the lines or the poison will kill you anyway. And that upset me.
Yeah, I think both of y'all fell prey to that, and I finished third, so I was like being very precise. The hit detection on that's a little bit wonky, and so you could be like, there's nothing more frustrating than feeling like I understand this puzzle and I have solved it, and it's like, I'm sorry, 1 pixel was out of place, so death for you.
Yeah, I had problems with pixels.
Oh man. Yeah, didn't that one get you too, Christian?
Yeah, and the thing about that one was it wasn't triggered by
pressing it,
yeah,
right?
it wasn't triggered by pressing a button. It was like as soon as you entered into a certain section of the room, it would just switch on and start killing you. So like I was like, okay, I'm not gonna press any buttons, I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna take this slow. And then I apparently crossed the line and it was just like, poisonous gas, oh no.
Yeah. So there's a couple perspective kind of pixel perfect-y issues that we might change, but at least the concept of the puzzles was mostly okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So pulling back from just the puzzles, the game as a whole, too hard, too easy? What do you think, Austin?
I think it's on the easy side. It's just due to the plethora of items that I had. I was just drowning in healing, drowning in ammo, drowning in guns, that I just ran without any kind of caution really much. Which, I mean, I did have a couple, I think it was like 1 or maybe 2 deaths in the second half. I don't remember the exact count. Probably 2. 1 to Hunter, 1 to just not caring anymore and dying to regenerating zombies. But that was just me being careless mostly, as opposed to, wow, this is difficult. So, definitely on the easy side, in my opinion.
Yeah. But, Christian, you had a different experience. In fact, we'll eventually get over our final stats. You had a very different experience. What do you feel about the difficulty on this one?
Well, first, I just have to say, good for you, Austin. I'm glad it was so easy.
Thank you, buddy.
I think for someone that has not experienced this style of game, it is difficult, especially if you don't read the manual. But now that I have, like, if I had played like other games that were similar to this going into this, I feel like I wouldn't have had as much of a problem. Like I probably would have said it wasn't too difficult. My biggest difficulty was just figuring out kind of what was going on and like how the puzzles worked, how running past them worked, that you didn't have to just kill them all to get to where you were trying to go. So just a lack of reading the manual. So maybe next time I'll learn. We have to find the manual before we start the next one.
Well, I feel like we could do that. I feel like the other thing was in an attempt to not color your perspective too much. We also didn't give you a lot of guidance when Austin first started playing this series. First off, he started with the remake, which is how I'd recommend anyone wanting to get into the genre would start, because it just has more accessibility options. And difficulty options even, which is what I wish this game has, because for a newbie, I think it's actually kind of hard, but for a veteran, it's kind of easy. It's which is probably difficulty sweet spot, but I would not mind at all like a version that pumped up some of the difficulty for people that have played it before, or a version that knocked a lot of it down for people trying to get to grips with the genre. But hindsight's 2020. They didn't know this was going to be a genre when they made it. They just thought it was a game. But I do think when Austin first started, it was really frustrating to get a hold of it, though. I didn't, not give hints. I was like, oh yeah, do this trick, it'll help. We ended up talking to you about some of those tricks that would help, but, kind of after you had been struggling for, 5 hours. Yeah. Might have been useful information a little bit earlier into your adventure, I think.
Just a little bit.
Sorry about that. Yeah, well,
You live and you
sometimes
learn.
we throw our babies. Yeah, you throw the babies into the iceberg and see if they drift off to the ocean. This metaphor's lost its place.
Oh my.
Anyway, okay. So yeah, we kind of talked about that. I guess one last thing, even though it's not a big part of it, combat. We talked about the puzzles and the difficulty and stuff. It's pretty simple. Did we like the weapon selection? Do we feel like it was enough to keep up the variety? Did you want some more? Do you care about the weapons? Austin, hit me with your combat opinions.
Grenade launcher, go boom boom.
Yeah, I didn't get a grenade launcher. I'm not cool enough.
Aw.
Yeah, Chris doesn't get a grenade launcher. Pistol and shotgun all the way.
That's unfair and sad.
Yeah, well, it's sexist is what it is. I love the take, because Chris is basically hard mode is another thing. And people are like, we don't know how the gender theorists are going to handle their brains are going to blow off, because playing the girl is easy mode and that's offensive, but she's easy mode because she's just infinitely more capable than her male counterpart. So no one knows what to do with it. But Christian, I mean, everything else aside, did you like the variety of weapons? Did they feel substantial enough for you? What do you think about it?
I mean, for a majority of the game, I just used the shotgun.
Yeah, the shotgun.
And then I pulled out the grenade launcher whenever I was in basically a boss fight.
Yeah.
But for the most, once I had the shotgun, I used the handgun maybe twice. I used the shotgun, and I used the revolver maybe once or twice.
Magnum.
The Magnum, yeah. But the shotgun was my go-to.
Nice.
I find that interesting if I'm going to interject for a second.
No,
it's like
please
once
do.
you got the shotgun, you barely used the handgun. I used the handgun a ton throughout the entire game, but how I thought about it was anytime there was a normal walking zombie, it was handgun time, and I would kill practically all of them with a handgun with some few exceptions. And then everything else was shotgun or grenade launchers through the entire game. Until the very end, and I decided to use a grenade launcher on everything.
Well, I'm going to interject here and point out one thing that we brought up in the last episode, but it's worth reminding. You, Austin, are playing the easiest version of this game that exists. Now, you've played more... I'm not knocking your credentials. It just kind of happened that way. You got more ammo and stuff than Christian and I got, because yours is the Japanese version. So you had a fewer enemies, they died quicker, and there was more plentiful supplies in your version than the versions Christian and I had. So it's possible that you were overflowing in so much ammo with stuff that, it felt doable, and maybe he felt a little bit more limited on the ammo he had.
Very possible. My version was really wonky.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of ammo too, and I was on the same American version as he was, but, it was, I didn't feel quite as flush as I heard you told me, the numbers you had, and I was like, okay, I had a lot, I didn't have that many. But yeah, I think the weapon selection's just what it needs to be. I think the pistol has a unique place, I think the shotgun has a unique place, I love the grenade launcher, and then you get the Magnum a little late in the game, to be a lot of interesting decisions, in my opinion. I basically just didn't use it till the last round, and then I knew I was headed to the boss, and I picked it up, and I had to pass by that room with like 4 zombies in it, and I just pulled out the Magnum and went headshot, 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 headshot. Their heads all pop. It's always a critical hit on basic zombies, and that was glorious. It felt very good, but yeah. I feel like there was enough weapon variety for what this game was doing, but going forward, I would definitely want them to build on the repertoire they've built so far. All right, fellas. I mean, we'll do this briefly, but how about those cutscenes, man?
Top tier.
Yeah. So, we kind of glanced at the story, but yeah, they got stuck in that mansion before, separated, a partner's gone missing. There was a lot of suspicion around Barry last time, if I remember, Christian. But even more than that, I think there was a suspicion placed elsewhere as well this time, right? You want to tell me about your relationship with Wesker?
Me?
Yeah, why not?
I'm suspicious that he's responsible for Enrico's death. I can't prove it.
Yeah.
But I'm suspicious.
You're starting to think.
Think.
I mean, you knew Wesker was a villain from, like, other stuff in the series, right? This was not a plot twist to you.
Yes, I knew he was going to be a villain. And I love how they slowly reveal, because like as you're going throughout the game, you get, I think it was on the slideshow, it's like all of the monsters, and then just a bunch of like scientist-looking people, and then Wesker in his glasses and slick back hair, and it's like
it's just a lab coat with the sunglasses.
Yeah, why? Like. It's like he wasn't even trying to blend in. Like,
no,
those fluorescent lights are really getting to him, I guess.
He just never takes them off. Okay, so what's even funnier, I'm just gonna say, because this is well known, he comes back later in the series, obviously, with superpowers and glowing red eyes, and so the excuse for his sunglasses in later games is he's like hiding his like glowing red eyes. He doesn't even have that in this game, he just does that because that's like how he is. It's so stupid, I absolutely love it. Fun fact though, when you're Chris, on that second mansion visit, where Barry's like, hey, I left you some supplies, you get a little note there, that's like, Barry's like, hey, I left you some. Wesker does that in the Chris campaign, which does make that, betrayal, hit just a bit harder. This guy, he helped you out, he was your buddy, and then he was actually evil. Huh. I mean, listen, it's not Shakespeare, but I think it's fun. But, that's not the real heartstrings. We all knew this was coming. But what we didn't know was the fate of Barry. Talk to me about Barry, man. I need to hear.
He was a good guy.
Wait, did he die for you?
No, he was still alive.
Okay. You can get him killed. That is an option. Yeah, you can have him die. If you're not careful and make some mistakes in the game, you can get him killed.
I always made him go in the room first. Because I was like, I don't trust you. But I had reason. I knew he was sketch. I stand by my assumptions at the beginning because he was very sus.
Yes.
I had reasons to suspect. How was I supposed to know that his wife and kids were like kidnapped, and that Wesker was threatening him? Like, there was no way to know that.
Yeah. No, but you had the right intuition that he was sus. Yeah. But yeah, so Barry, you saved him. What about your intrepid partner? Did you save him, Christian?
He was beyond saving. He found his own way out.
That's not how that works.
We won't find out until later games, but he found his own way out.
Oh, okay, Austin, you saved Chris, right?
I saved Chris Redfield.
Yeah, that's right.
There are some boulders in the future that we need him for.
That's right, and I saved Jill because she's coming up in this, even in this season, so we definitely needed her alive. Yeah, and I'll briefly mention Rebecca, because she's on my side. I wish I had sent it to you, Christian, I didn't in time, but Austin, I sent you that conversation they have after Plant 42.
Oh.
Holy cow. Is that not, like, the most unhinged conversation, like, in this entire game, though? Like, it's not even English. They're like, wow, that was tough. Can you help me? I can help you, at least for a little bit, but not with your major wound. That's okay. Help as much as you can. Like... It's just like barely English.
But you have to make it. You know, everybody's got to understand. It wasn't that delivery. The delivery almost sounds like they're flirting with each other when saying these horrible lines. That elevates it.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do right now. At this point in the podcast, or maybe we'll put it at the end. This will be the bonus thing. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to put a compilation. We're each gonna pick like 3 of our favorite cutscenes and just play them. Because like they get, I promise you, no compilation you've seen online. Because Austin even said this. I showed him that cutscene. He's like, why isn't this in the compilations? It's absolutely hilarious. Like, until you've watched them all, you cannot. Everyone is a gem. I'm just telling you. So. Go watch them, and we'll put some of our favorites here. It is, oh my gosh, it's so funny, and it's so worth playing. You fight these games, do these hard bosses, and get around this thing, and then suddenly, like, the most unhinged series of words, and, like, with the weirdest delivery possible happens, and then you go back to, like, your 90s horror game, and it's like, okay. So, that was funny. A last little tidbit I did want to mention was, yeah, we mentioned it as a password, but, there sure was a character named Ada, right?
Mm-hmm. She exists.
That's weird. Moving on. That's foreshadowing, folks. I'm very subtle at it. Yeah. Okay, so, we fought through everything. We saved the people, or didn't. We got through our puzzles, faced our fears. How about that, I guess we can talk about the boss fights in general, but I am specifically interested in how you felt about that kind of finale and Tyrant boss fight. Austin, any big opinions on the boss fights in general and the Tyrant specifically?
Okay, so going specifically to Tyrant, Phase 1 Tyrant, I was baffled how fast he went down. Because I was prepped, I'm like, okay, I got the grenade launcher ready, I got the Magnum, I'm ready to run around in circles and shoot this guy. Bam, 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 blah. Like, that's it? Okay. The second Tyrant fight was a little bit more climactic because he didn't just go down in 3 shots. I got to actually run around, shoot a few times, and then, make him go kablooey. But, yeah, that was the most memorable thing about boss fights, how fast Tyrant Phase 1 went down.
I mean, fair. Yeah, I think the second one's neat because he will, I don't want to hear yours a second, Christian, but if he backhands you, he can, like, whack you into the wall. That backhand sends you flying. It's really interesting. Yeah, that second phase Tyrant fight, especially if you have the Magnum, still isn't that hard, but it's at least, almost a boss fight. Christian, you struggled with a lot of parts of the games. Were the boss fights in particular difficult? Did that Tyrant fight give you any trouble, or was it a piece of cake compared to the rest?
Honestly, it took more shots to take down the snake than it did the Tyrant.
The Tyrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the weapon I was using, but like Austin said, the Tyrant went down in 3 grenade launchers, and I go over to Barry, and he's like, "I'm so embarrassed, I got backhanded."
I forgot to mention that same cutscene where you get with like Barry. There's a comparative one with Rebecca. And it's the funniest frigging thing because Chris is like, "How long have you been a lapdog for Umbrella?" And he's like, "I'm no lapdog, I just do what they want. Watch." And shoots Rebecca, just point blank, and it's like, oh crap. Like, and she just falls over dead, crumples. And then, like, you go fight the Tyrant, and you come back out, and where Barry's like, "I'm so embarrassed," Rebecca's like, "Haha! This bulletproof vest sure is great!" And she's just completely unharmed. Like, she just laid there. I don't know what was... It's the funniest frigging thing. Like, and if you look at her character design, she is wearing a bulletproof vest, but it is just so funny because she crumples like a doll and then just, like, stands immediately back up after the boss fight. I'm like, why did you play possum while we were fighting for our lives? So, yeah. So, all right, I think we've pretty thoroughly covered that there. Wesker's dead, the Tyrant's defeated, the mansion's blown up, we saved the day. I wanted to kind of go over some closing and final thoughts here and any of that before we round it out and head out for that. I guess I'll start with this one. Least favorite thing about this game. I really like it. In fact, my opinion of it has actually gone up a little bit of it from where it was before. But if I do think and this is cheating, I get to look into the future. I think some of the lack of difficulty options, some of the unadjustability that the later games and later versions of this game have, are probably my least favorite thing, because I think it's a pretty solid game, but I do think that it's kind of like, yeah, you get what you get, and if you're unfamiliar, you're going to bang your head against it for a while, and if you are familiar, it's a little bit of a cakewalk. And I feel like it's a great game, but in the difficulty department, it's very mildly the worst of both worlds, being so difficult for beginners and so easy for veterans. Christian, though, what was your least favorite thing about Resident Evil 1?
It got better after I figured it out, but the tank controls would probably be my least favorite.
That's allowed, yeah. Any expounding on that, or just they exist and I don't like that?
They exist, and I don't like that.
Okay. Well, bad luck for you. There's like 5 more of them before we get to the non-tank control one.
No.
Sorry.
Just wait till you get to the final boss.
Oh, he doesn't know about Zero yet. Anyway.
I haven't even done that one yet.
You have to control 2 characters with tank controls at the same time. Anyway.
Oh my word.
Yeah, Austin. Least favorite thing about Resident Evil 1.
I'm trying so hard to come up with an actual good answer, because I don't think I hate any aspect of the game. Yeah. Like, originally, like, old me probably would have said, yeah, I hate tank controls and the camera angles, but those really grew on me. But I'm trying to think, are they still the least favorite part of the game, even though I don't think they're bad? I don't...
You can look into the
really
future,
hard.
too. You can look into the future and say, like, things other games do later that you like more. That
I know I
this one do.
am a fan of the third-person aspect of the game. As slightly better, but I don't know if I would say in the context of Resident Evil 1 that the tank controls are the least favorite part. Probably the issue with, like, needing to be facing the perfect pixel to interact with things was the only part that I got frustrated at. So I guess the weird interaction hitboxes is probably my least favorite thing.
That is an absolutely fair critique there. Alright, now flip that around, Austin. What was your favorite part about this version of Resident Evil 1?
The cutscenes, 100%.
Are we all agreed on that?
Yeah.
Like, cause I don't want to go to the... Yeah.
Cutscenes were gold.
I feel bad because I actually do think and you're allowed to feel, you're so okay that you feel differently, Christian. I actually do think the underlying game, as Austin mentioned, I think it's a gem. But I think it's good. I think it created a genre that is valuable and worthwhile, and I really love. But yeah, those cutscenes are just gold. It really is amazing. I wonder how we're gonna like 2 and 3, because they are much less campy. They have much higher quality production, and I wonder if it's gonna just kind of fade into like, oh, it's a game. I know how I feel because I've played them later, but Christian, you're gonna lose your camp a little bit. So there is that.
But don't worry, there's a game down the road that amps up the camp in a fantastic way.
Oh yes. 4 is delightful. And 6, guess the wipers work. But yeah. Alright. So we kind of mentioned this before, but Austin, what would you change about this game if you could?
What would I change? Probably some, and this is kind of cheating because I'm looking to the future and already kind of know they kind of change already. What I would probably do is like how some of the enemy types a little bit might be slightly modified. Which I know the remake does something with the enemy types, and that is a fantastic change.
So you're talking about the thing, I think, about the zombies?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil that for Christian, but I know exactly what you mean. Viewers, when we get there, you'll know exactly what we mean. It's a great change.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, please expound as much as you want, Christian, but I assume not being tank controls is probably top on your list there, right?
Yes, and I'm very curious what it is both of you are talking about that they change.
It's very good. We'll get there at some point, I promise, and you will know. You will know.
Okay.
The Crimson Heads. Yeah, I think the thing I'd change, I think I mentioned before, just extra difficulty settings, which, again, it kind of happens later. And everything Remake does. I'm sorry. I love this game. Part of my harshness on this game is not because I think it's a good game, but I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of like, why would I recommend someone play this, other than just to see how the series evolved, when Remake exists? We'll get there, and it doesn't mean this game is bad, but Remake is just this game, but better in basically every way. So, yeah. But it's still good. It's still good. If you're like, hey, I want to play all the games and see where it started, totally worth it. But if you're like, I want to play the first in like a survival horror, yeah, go play the remake. Sorry. That's kind of, it's just been superannuated, which I don't say lightly, I don't say often, but I just cannot think of a reason to play this one over the remake other than like nostalgia or to experience the growth of the series. Mm-hmm. So, winding up in that, this is mostly just for, I guess it's mildly for Austin too, because he hasn't played the PS1 originals. So I'll start with you, Austin. What are you hoping for in the, again, PS1 version of Resident Evil 2, the next game in a sequel?
Personally, since I played 2 Remake, I am looking forward to seeing the classic characterization of, like, Leon, Claire, and Ada.
Oh, it is very different from the remakes, so it will be interesting how you experience that.
Yeah.
And what about you, Christian? You don't know anything about most of the stuff later, but what would you hope for now that you know you got to play a sequel, you know it's going to be tank controlled, but what are you hoping for in the sequel that might be more enjoyable?
I know a little bit about 2 just because I've seen, like, when the remake for 2 came out, I saw a lot of clips of it.
Yeah.
But I'm excited just to kind of see where things go. Like
plot-wise, or
plot-wise, I want to see the origins of Leon. Because I mean, I've played 4.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's very different in 2.
Okay, that's what I'm curious to see, the difference between 2 and 4 and kind of what that looks like. So
he is just a different character. Y'all are gonna be. It's so funny. Y'all have played all the remakes and like the modern games, but like original Leon's just like, why won't anyone listen to me? It's funny.
I'm excited. Every iteration of Leon is gold.
Yes, this one too, but he's a lot less cocky. I'll just say that. He's kind of like a dork. It's great. I guess any. I would say predictions, but I think that's kind of listed in the in what we're hoping for. So yeah, I'm excited to see that. We'll hit that one next. But last thing before we leave, got the old tier list pulled up here. You know, A through F. Where's this going, Austin, on that tier list?
So the highest rank is A, not S?
I tend to do A's. We can make it S.
Okay. Well,
whatever.
A,
all the Pokemon ones were A. Do we want S's? I will do whatever you two want.
I don't have a strong opinion either way. As long as I make sure I'm understanding the tier. If A is the highest, I would put classic Resident Evil 1 at a solid B+.
Yeah. That's actually where I think mine might be a B-, but it's in B all the same. Christian, be honest. Don't give in to peer pressure. This is your opinion, your tier list. I will only deface it with frowny faces and mildly. Where's this game going?
Currently, I'm gonna give it, and it may change as I experience the other ones, but I'm currently gonna say a C-.
Oh, okay. That's actually higher than I thought I was gonna. I thought we were going into the D territory, to be honest. But yeah,
it's still passing, but barely.
just barely. Hey, I'm expecting better marks out of you in Resident Evil 2.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing there. And I'll post, I think we got those screenshots of those stats I'll post in the editor's notes of how long, like, there's a little in-game stats, and I'll go post those too. But yeah, fellas, thank you so much for this. I have really appreciated getting to go through one of my favorite game series with y'all. I'm really looking forward to what y'all think of 2, because it's, like I said, Austin's played the remake, but this is going to be a new experience there. Christian, I'm kind of hoping that maybe the bit more polished, and now that you've gotten to grips with it, it'll be a bit more fun. But yeah, I'm just excited to see where the heck this crazy roller coaster goes. So thank you so much, guys. I love you all lots, and God bless.
Have a good one.
Hasta luego.
You're jumping too far ahead!
Oh! I can't believe it! Are you okay?
Yeah, so much for him. We got to the root of the problem. Saved again.
I just...
Really, thank you.
You'd do the same for me, wouldn't you?
I guarantee it.
Well, Chris, this is Richard's radio. This room is fully equipped with medical supplies. I can treat you, except for your major injury. Would you like me to?
I'm okay, but if something happens to me, please take care of me. Is this?
That's right. This is the ultimate life form. Tyrant! Chris? Stop it.
Wesker, you're pitiful.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Is that you, Jill? What happened? That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life. What is it?
It's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. Better take it with you.
But how about you, Barry?
I have this.
Thank you. I'll take this then.
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
Don't mention it. What a monster. I can't believe... What the hell is this place anyway? Jill! Don't scare me.
That's what I was going to say. Aren't you supposed to be going over the first floor, Barry?
Yeah, you're right. But just take a look at this. It's forest. Oh my God.
It's awful.
I'm going to find out what caused Forrest's death. It looks like he was killed by a crow or something. Do you think we could see Tyrant now?
Barry, you're so optimistic.